Nalalidaloka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Shamsharadava Nalalidaloka Naya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyanam Gunanavasya Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Praptasakai Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nitya Gita Paditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhaju Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Tana Nityanana Shringaratanama Dhiramajanado Juktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatapi Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Chaturvedhashi Bhagavad Prasado Satvana Truptan Hari Bhakta Sangam Kridvaiva Truptim Bhajata Shadeva Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Shiradikama Bhavayara Para Madhura Lila Gunarupanamna Shiradika Madhura Lila Gunarupanamna Pratikshana Dhanalalupasya Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Nekunjayono Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Virjukti Apekshaneya Nekunjayono Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Virjukti तत्राति दक्ष अतिबलवस्य वन्दे गुरश्रीचरणर वृन्दम् साक्षाद्धरिद्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे रुक्तास्तथाव गतैव सद्वे साक्षाद्धरिद्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे किन्तु प्रवर्ज प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरश्री चरणरविन्दम् यस्य प्रसाद भगवत्प्रसाद यस्य प्रसादं न गति कुतपि यस्य प्रसाद भगवत्प्रसाद यस्य प्रसादं न गति कुतपि ध्यायां स्तुभं तस्य यस्य त्रिसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरश्री चरणरविन्दम् ध्यायां स्तुभं तस्य यस्य त्रिसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरश्री चरणरविन्दम् नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमः विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदान्त स्वामिनिति नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाचत्तरिशतारिणे नमस्ते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचार निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाचत्तरिशता जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसारी गौर भक्तवृंद चैतन्य चैतन्य नित्यानंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसारी गौर भक्तवृंद श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य चैतन्य नित्यानंद Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hariyaraye Namah Krishna Jadavaye Namah Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopal Govindaram Shrimadusudam Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghuna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghuna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Shri Radha Nila Madhav Radhe Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadrama Jaya Sudarshan Chakra Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, Haribo. Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Pramanande Hari 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 Bol Jai Vishpar Paramsa Prabhajagacharya Suttura Srashi Shimar Jivan Grace Avacharvina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Iskon Pratishta Viviti Samstapakachar Vaishnav Siramani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Gaurya Gurvarga Patita Udhar Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sadghosh Swami Prabhu Ki Jai Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Ananta Kuri Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Jai Prem Si Kaho Si Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Jai Param Dayal Si Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Jai Premanama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Si Sachinandan Shman Gauranga Si Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mahavrana Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai Jug Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Brihat Nidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopina Radha Kunsam Kun Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrajabhum Vrindavan Mathur Dham Ki Jai Deloship Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai Shri Maya Purnavadip Eka Chakra Dham Ki Jai Paramakurun Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smaspadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Karan Shingare Bhagavan Ki Jai Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Vrini Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Mati Radharani Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vindi Ki Jai Nitai Gaurari Pramanandi Haribo All glory to the assembly bodies. All glory to the assembly bodies. All glory to the assembly bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga Hari Bo. Namaste Narasingaya. Namaste Narasingaya. Pralada la da da hine. Pralada la da da hine. Hiranyakashipurvaksham. Silatankanakalaye. Ito nishingo parato nishingam. Ito nishingo parato nishingam. Jato jato jami tato nishingam. Bairi nishingam. Rudaye nishingam. Narasingamadim sharanam prapade. Tabakara kamalavare nakam arabhuta shinga dalita hiranyakashipu tanabringam kesavadrita narahari rupa jai jagadisha re. Jai jagadisha re. Jai jagadisha re. Tavakara kamala naka arabhuta shinga dalita hiranyakashipu tanabringa kesavadita narari rupa jai jagadisha re. Jai jagadisha re. Jai jagadisha re. Kesavadruta narahari rupa jai jagadisha re. Jai jagadisha re. Jai jagadisha re. Kesavadrita Jai jagadisha re. Jai jagadisha re. Jayo nishingare. Jayo nishingare. Nishingare. Jayo nishingare. Jaya Narahari, Jaya Narahari, Narahari, Jaya Narahari. Jaya Bhakta Prahlad, Prahlad Maharaj, Bhakta Prahlad, Srila Prahlad Maharaj. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo. Nitai Gaura Premanande. Jai Shri Shri Bhakti Pada Sarvigna Ashra Kari Shingari Bhagavan ki jai. Bhakta Shrishta Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Nitai Gaurari Premanande. Hari Hari Bo. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Vai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Satavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Vai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Satavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulasi Devai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Satavatai Namo Namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai.
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Iya Bhilashi Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Iya Bhilashi Je tomara sharana loy tara vancha purana hoy नयने हरि वो सदा जुगल रूपरासी। ए निवेदन धारो साखीर अनुगाता कोरो। सेवा अधिकारा दिए कोरो निज दासी। दीना कृष्णा दासे कोए ए जीना मोरा होए। श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जीना वासी। श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये न भासी। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जया तुलसी महारानी जया तुलसी महारानी जया तुलसी महारानी जया तुलसी महारानी। जया वृंदा देवी जया वृंदा देवी जया वृंदा देवी जया वृंदा देवी। नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल। नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल, नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल। नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय।
Bestowing myself on him, you make me resident over in Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan. Thus, within my vision, I always behold universe and Radha Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Gavidhyam Supraj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. His very fallen and lowly servant Krishna, please. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kristakam ki jai. Baba Madhava Nivapanam Sheyakariva Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadhu Jivanam Anandam Budhivardhanam Pratipadam Purna Mrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Parampara Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamita Shmarane Nakala Etadrushi tava kripaya bhagavan mamapi durdhaiva midrishamya janina anuraga trinadapi sunichaina tarorapi saishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya swadahari na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam vajagarisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishari Bhavatar bhakti rahitu ki tvai Ainandatanu kinkaram Paritamam visame bhavam buddho Kripaya tava pada pankaja Stitaduli sadrisham vichintaya Nayanam galora shudharaya Vajinam gada gada rudaya gira Purakaya nichitam papukada Tava nama grane bhavisati Juga itam nimishena chakusha pravusha itam shunya itam jagata sarvam govinda virahena me asli shava padaratam pinashtumam adarshanar marmahatam karotuva jata tathava vidadatu lampato matpranatastu saivana para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Kam Ki Jai. Namo Mahabharanaya Krishna Prema Pradaya Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guru Tvishu. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fiery condition of life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large. God expressed the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which you're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are no hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower and straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer our respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of devotion service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some or other, I've fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Will my voice choke up? And will the hairs of my body stand on the end of the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Kam Ki Jai. Mahabharanaya Krishna Prema Pradaya Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Guru Krishna Krishna Pradaya Krishna Krishna. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1, to blaspheme devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2, to consider names of the demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3, to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4, to blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5, to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6, to give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7, to commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which offer Vedas as fruitive activity, karma kanda. 9, to instruct the fatherless person about the glories of holy name. And 10, to not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just our desired trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone. And they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls.
Shri Guru Pranama Prayers Ki Jai. Om Aganyati Mirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Jitaha Pachikamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsa Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Laguntam Vitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parichana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaguna Lalita Shri Visakha Nivitamsa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Nas Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamini Shri Varsavanavi Devi Dayitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhakti Da Shri Guru Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasiddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Guru Kishoraya Shakshadvairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitanandanamine Guru Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Guru Vir Baba Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhaumashri Jagaratayate Namaha Vanchakalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gurutrise Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhakta Avataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratur Bangur Mama Manda Mater Gati Matsarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divya Dvindaranya Kalpradumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prestali Bihi Sevyamano Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasa Rambi Vamsivata Tatastika Karsan Venuswaner Gopir Gopinatak Striyesturna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanastute Devi Pranamani Hari Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai. Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakarasatma Sukalpa Vriksha Laksha Vrite Susurabir Abhipaliantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrahma Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Vajami Girun Kanantam Aravinda Dalayataksham Bharhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvanamadya Vamse Ratnam Gadam Pranay Keli Kalavilasam Shaman Tribanga Lalita Nita Prakasam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovancham Cha Vede Sadurlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastukoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayo Ratapi Manaso Munipungamana So Pyasti Yat Prapadasinya Vichintya Tatve Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chahitam Jagadanda Koti Yas Chakti Rasti Jagadanda Chaya Yadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Samprup Yarupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusa Suktarya Meva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Pratibhavitabis Tabirya Eva Nijarupa Taya Kalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Hidesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundarama Chintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Amenatistan Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvane Sukintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pamam Yo Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti Kotisra Sesu Vasudadi Vibhuti Vinam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Ashesha Bhutam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Chai Gunya Tad Vishaya Veda Vitayamana Sattva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasu Ya Pranilam Pratifalam Smaratam Upetya Lilaya Tena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Tale Chatasya Devi Mahesu Haridama Sute 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 Te Prabhava Nichaya Vihitascha Yena Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shriram Reka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichanurupam Apiyasya Chachesta Tesa Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shriram Yata Dadi Vikara Vishesa Yoga Sanjayate Nahitata Pritakasti Hetu Yasambhutam Apitata Samapaiti Karya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Deepachareva Hitasantaram Abhyupetya Deepayate Vivita Hetu Sanmanu Dharma Dashtadrigeva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narna Vajale Bhajati Sma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagadanda Sarvamakupa Adhara Saktim Avalambhya Param Swamurtim Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kalamatavalamya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadanta Nata Vishnur Mahansa Yasya Kala Vishesho Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Basman Yatasma Sakalesu Nijesu Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitat Vatatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidanu Karta Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dvande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vihantu Malamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Maruddhisascha Kalastatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Visanti Yamcha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sakala Grahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakra Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sutayastapamsi Brahma Dikita Patagava Tayasta Jiva Yadata Mata Vipava Pakata Prabhava Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yastindra Gopa Matavendra Mahoswa Karma Bandhana Rupa Phalavajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdahati Kintu Chabakti Bhajam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bitti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gaurava Sevya Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisim Tanama Purete Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Druma Bhumischintamani Ganamai Toyam Amritam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriyasaki Chidanandam Jyoti Param Apita Daswadyam Apicha Sayatra Siradi Bihishavati Sirabi Byasta Sumahan Nime Sardakyova Vrajati Nahiya Trapisamaya Bhaje Sveta Dvipam Tamaham Iha Golokam Itiyam Vedanta Stesam Takshiti Viralakshara Gati Paye Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai. Shri Guru Vastika prayers Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy. Just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always engaged in this but he dwells in the mellows of pure devotion with his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end. He feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzed as that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sweat. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. I offer my most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. As much the Supreme Lord, because he is the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my receive the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, verse number 29. Aditsor anapananam asan kuksyantra nadaya nadya samudra chatayos tusti pusti stadashraye aditso, desiring to have, anapananam, of food and drink, asan, there became, kukshi, the abdomen, antra, the intestines, nadaya, and the arteries, nadya, the rivers, samudra, seas, cha, also, tayo, of them, tusti, sustenance, pusti, metabolism, tat, of them, ashraya, the source. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. When there was a desire to have food and drink, the abdomen and the intestines, and also the arteries became manifested. The rivers and seas are the source of their sustenance and metabolism. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The controlling deities of the intestines are the rivers, and those of the arteries the seas. Fulfillment of the belly with food and drink is the cause of sustenance, and the metabolism of the food and drink replaces the waste of the bodily energies. Therefore, the body's health is dependent on healthy actions of the intestines and the arteries. The rivers and seas, being controlled deities of the two, being the controlling deities of the two, keep the intestines and the arteries in healthy order. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. When there was a desire to have food and drink, the abdomen and the intestines and also the arteries became manifested. The rivers and seas are the source of their sustenance and metabolism. Go to Premanandi Haribol. So there's a lot of, there is a very significant statement here concerning health. It says, therefore, the body's health is dependent on healthy actions of the intestines and the arteries. Almost all diseases begin in the stomach, or the intestines, the intestines, and spreads after that. So, having good digestion is very important for the maintenance of the body and maintenance of health. And having good blood circulation in the arteries and veins and capillaries is just as important for maintaining the energy and health of the body, because wherever the blood goes, oxygen goes with it and nutrients. So that oxygen and nutrients have to reach all parts of the body to maintain it. That's why it says, fulfillment of the belly with food and drink is the cause of sustenance, and the metabolism of the food and drink replaces the waste of the bodily energies. So there's three basic types of enzymes. There's digestive enzymes, metabolic enzymes, and oxidative enzymes. So this is one aspect that keeps the body healthy. So when it talks about metabolic enzymes, that is how the bolus, or the food that has been chewed, and then it goes to the stomach and it gets zapped by some hydrochloric acid and other things, and then it comes to the intestine. There are two parts of the intestines: the short intestine, the long intestine. So that's where the bolus, that's where this partially digested food comes, and then it's completely broken down. There are more acids in the intestines, and it's completely broken down into the most basic sugar, and then that basic sugar, there's different types of sugar. There's fructose and glucose. So glucose is the real sustaining, let's say, energy or source of energy for the body. It's the most simple, let's say, sugar. Okay, so if there are problems of digestion, and then of circulation of the blood, one gets really sick and they can die. That's how serious it is. So usually people get, cancer of stomach cancer or intestinal cancers, or they have blocked arteries. All these things are causes of serious diseases and death. So, how do we keep these essential parts of the body healthy? Well, one way is you can go to Mount Si, and there's a very fast river coming down from the mountain. I went there once, and there's a lot of rocks in the bottom of that river, so it's good that you wear some type of rubber shoe or something. And you walk into the river, and the water is pretty cold, so it's coming down from the mountain. But that current of the water is very healing. The same thing can be experienced also in Haridwar, where you go to the Harkipuri Bridge, and you can come down, and there's these chains. So hold on to the chain. You go into the Ganges, and that fast current is coming down. It's cold water. Same thing. And you feel good after that. You feel very good. At first, it feels a little funny because it's cold. Yeah.
The voice is very low online.
Okay, sorry. So, so you can go to Harkipuri Bridge, and you can improve your digestion by just holding onto that chain, and that water is coming down really fast. And if you let go of the chain, you could be carried away and die. People just hold on. And part of the river is sort of directed to come on the bank, and it sort of slows it down a little bit because they built some kind of they built something so that it slows down a little bit, and you hold on to the chain, and you feel great after that. And same thing here on Mount Si. It's exactly the same thing. You don't need to hold on to anything. It's not as the current is coming down fast, but it's not as fast as the Ganges, and you can stay in the water usually about 5-10 minutes, and you feel rejuvenated, right? And you digest better. So this verse is simply giving more information about how that works. So the rivers are helping the arteries. The digestion, and the seas are helping the arteries. So if you go to Jagannath Puri, and the ocean is there, and it's very, very nice, but it has a very strong undercurrent. You have to be careful. People can die because the undercurrent can carry you into the deep sea, and you can drown. But when you go there and you stand in the water, and then the waves are coming in, it's very, very good for circulation. See? And the same thing in other places, like Hawaii, Florida, wherever there's the ocean. Lord Chaitanya used to bathe every day when he was in Jagannath Puri. He used to bathe every day in the ocean. So it's called the Indian Ocean, right? Or is it called the Arabian Ocean? Yeah, it's the Indian Ocean, right? Oh, Bay of Bengal. Okay. Yeah. So you can see how all knowledge is in the Srimad Bhagavatam. You learn about different species, you learn about digestion and good circulation. You learn everything. You don't need to waste your time studying other books. Just study the Srimad Bhagavatam. You'll get all knowledge about everything. and everything essential for going back to Godhead.
Maharaj, so bathing in the river, is it similar to a cold shower at home also?
Cold shower, you don't have the current so much in the cold shower, but you have, it's refreshing to take a cold shower. In fact, if you want to be warm on a cold day, take a cold shower. Because that pulls the blood up toward the skin, right? And then also if you rub the skin with salt or Epsom salt, again it improves its circulation, right? Yeah, these are all ways of maintaining the health. Okay, so it says, the rivers and the seas being the controlling deities of the two, meaning the intestines and arteries, keep the intestines and the arteries in healthy order. There you go. So it's always good to live near a river. In Arlington, we got a really nice river. Did you see it? Yeah, it's a really nice river. It's not a dangerous river because on the bank that's on the side of the farm, it's not very deep. On the other bank, on the other side of the river, it gets somewhat deeper. But it's not like a very, very fast current. You know, it's not slow either, but it's a nice current, and kids can go on by staying close to the Arlington's, the farm side of the river, and then if adults want to go deeper, they can go on the other side, or you can get an inflated tire, you know, the inside of the tire, and you can float down the river. You start at the bridge, you float down. It's a very nice place. In the summertime, it's gorgeous. You know, it's nice and warm, and the water is slightly cold because it's coming from the mountain, but it's pure water. There are no industries up there. Okay, so therefore, we need to keep our health, but they can only happen if we have knowledge. Therefore, in America, the health of the people is not good. Why? Because they're eating junk food. They have constipation problems, especially children. Children are oftentimes constipated, and that's why they get sick. They get stuffed nose, and they have earaches, and they have different problems because they're eating junk food. The kids eat the most junk food of all, and even if you try and keep them on a good diet, somehow or other they'll end up eating junk food. So it's very important to make sure that the kids are not constipated. And you can't really tell unless you're looking for it, right? And you should be looking for it, because when they get constipated, they'll definitely get sick. And they get stomach aches, and all kinds of things go wrong with the body when it gets constipated. Okay, so now I want to go back to what we were doing yesterday in dialectic spiritualism, because this is an extremely important book, and it's very supplemental to the Bhagavatam, and Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, because you see how Prabhupada uses verses from the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam to dispel the misconceptions of the karmis, and especially the scientists, and so-called great scientists like Darwin and others. So if you want to learn Bhagavad Gita, you have to read this book. And if you want to learn Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and know how to use verses to answer questions, this is the book. So it said, yesterday we stopped on the part on the the devotee says, well, they claim, meaning scientists, that the evolutionists, they claim that everything started with a one-celled animal. And Prabhupada said, where did that animal come from? And then the devotee says, from chemical combinations. Prabhupada, then who supplied the chemicals? And then the devotee, scientists are not so concerned with who, but with the existing phenomena. This is it's a lame excuse, right? Prabhupada, mere study of phenomena is childish. That's a great statement. Mere study of phenomena is childish because you don't know the beginning, you don't know the end. You just know something that appears, but you don't really understand it. Real science means finding the original cause. Darwin may have studied this island or that island, or he may have dug holes in this desert or that desert, but he has not seen the other millions of planets that are existing in the universe. He has not excavated and dug into the depths of all the other planets. How then can he conclude that this is all? He speaks of natural selection, but he has not perfectly studied nature. He has not studied natural functioning, functioning in a particular. He has only studied nature functioning in a particular place. That's right, on the east coast of Africa. Yeah, on the east coast of Africa. Yeah. He has only studied nature functioning in a particular place, and a very small place at that. When we speak of nature, we refer to Prakriti. We refer to the universe. There are millions of universes, and Darwin has not studied them. Yet he is drawing all these conclusions. There is certainly natural selection, but Darwin does not know how it is working. Darwin's defect is that he has no information of the soul. There you go. That's a real summary of Darwin's shortcomings. And he's not, and because of those shortcomings, he's not a bona fide authority. He's a speculator only. And he admits it also. So, what's important here is that with very little observation, how can he make such big declarations? So he said that that everything starts with a one-celled amoeba, and it evolves from one species to another, and then some species become extinct because they're replaced by a superior species. So it's on the basis of what you call survival of the fittest and natural. So that's the basis of natural selection, is on the basis of survival of the fittest. And the second point is so that's what he would call natural selection. And then on the premise that there's real genetic change from generation to generation, and therefore the species are always evolving. So there's no fixed species, but there's shifting and evolving physical forms. So this is nonsense. So the doctrine of natural selection and survival of the fittest. So natural selection means one species. There are different slight variances between in the species, and a certain variance is more successful than another. So then the ones that are less successful, they die out, and the ones that are more successful evolve, and eventually new species come in. So Prabhupada said, this is nonsense. That's not completely wrong. Why? Because all the species are created right at the start of material creation. And we're hearing about that now. And there are 8,400,000. Now, why are there 8,400,000? Well, the natural selection is not on the basis of random, permutations and combinations or little genetic differences or whatever, or missteps. It's on the basis of desire of the soul that's in the body. So that's why Prabhupada says Darwin has no information of the soul, so he doesn't really understand how natural selection takes place. So when you say natural selection, it means the desire. And Prabhupada also says that the animals and insects, they also have desires. They also have desires. There was once a I think it was a rat that came and complained to a sadhu. And the sadhu said, "What's your problem?" The rat said, "Cat is bothering me." And he said, "Well, what do you want from me?" He said, "Make me into a cat." He said, "Okay, so be it." Tadasta. He became a cat. Then the cat came back after some time and said, again, talked to the sadhu. He said, "I have another problem." He says, "What's that?" He said, "Dog is bothering me." He said, "Okay, you want to become a dog?" He said, "Yes." Tadastu. So the dog came back, and he said, "I got another problem." He said, "What's that?" He said, "The tiger is bothering me." He said, "Okay, you want to be a tiger?" He said, "Yeah." Tadastu. So when he becomes a tiger, he starts looking at the sadhu, and he's getting ready to jump on the sadhu and eat him. And the sadhu sees this. He says, "Oh, you're acting very belligerently now toward me." He said, "Therefore, go back and become a rat." Yeah. So there is an example of animals desiring, you see. And there's another so-called philosopher scientist called Thomas Henry Huxley. He lived from 1825 to 1895. And he said that the main thing that differentiates a human being from an animal is rational thought and speech. And he says, man alone possesses the marvelous endowment of intelligible, rational speech, whereby he has slowly accumulated and organized the experience which is almost lost with the cessation of every individual life. In other words, he can take part, he can read history and learn from the previous generations, and then he can express it. And so he has intelligible, rational speech. Prabhupada said, that is another misconception. Everyone speaks his own language. Animals have theirs, and human beings theirs. And then the devotee says, he specifically mentions intelligible, rational speech. Prabhupada said, animals have rational speech. And then the devotee says, they may be able to articulate certain basic facts to one another, but they have no culture or history. They have not been able to accumulate and organize the experience of their species. That is a false statement. It sounds correct, but it's false. There's this psychologist, research psychologist called Pavlov, a Russian, and he proved that from one generation to another, there can be a communication and knowledge, so that when the new generation is born, they are already equipped with that knowledge. He proved it. He did experiments and proved it. So, you see, people's understanding of the animals, insects, birds is very incomplete. So Prabhupada says that according to the Vedic tradition, the Sanskrit language is the mother of all languages and is spoken in the higher planetary systems. But this is not to say that one is an animal if he doesn't speak Sanskrit. Everyone has his own language. Englishmen, Indians, animals, birds, whatever. It is education that is really important, not language. Whoa. A human being with developed consciousness can receive a spiritual education, whereas animals cannot. That is the main difference. It is not basically a question of language, because knowledge can be imparted in any language, just as we are imparting Vedic knowledge in English and other languages. It is not language that distinguishes man from the lower species, but knowledge. Animals cannot receive knowledge of God, but a human being, regardless of his language, can understand God if knowledge is properly imparted to him. It's amazing statements. You see how all these speculators, they come up with theories, and if you don't have Prabhupada, then you'll waste years studying their philosophy and following it and thinking it's right. That's why he asked his disciples to read to him the philosophy of famous so-called thinkers in history, so that he could critique them. And that's how this book came about. But you don't see this book very much, unfortunately. Okay, so, but nature is not confined to this one planet. When you speak of material nature, you must include all the planets in the universe. Devotee. But scientists have no evidence that all the species have been existing from time immemorial. Srila Prabhupada. You cannot give evidence that the sun existed millions of years ago. Still, we conclude that it did. You don't have evidence that it's been existing for millions of years, but we conclude that it has, because we see that it's pouring out incredible amount of energy every second, and it doesn't stop. It hasn't stopped in our lifetime, and so we can assume that it's always been like that, and it will continue to be like that. Although scientists nowadays, they try and predict when the sun will go blank. But that's nonsense. So he says, within the sun, he says, the sun was not just created this morning. Within the sun, everything is existing, and if the sun is existing, other things must be existing also. Darwin draws conclusions about nature from a limited study of this one planet. This is not full knowledge. If your knowledge is not perfect, why should we accept your theories? Whether complex life forms were existing on this planet millions of years ago is not really the point. All these forms are existing in nature. According to the Vedas, the species in nature are fixed at 8,400,000. These may or may not be existing in your neighborhood, but that is not important. The number is fixed, and they are simultaneously existing. There may be an evolution from simpler forms to more complex, but it is not that a species becomes extinct. Real evolution is the evolution of the soul through the existing species. Now, we admit that with the changes of seasons, or with extreme heat or cold, differences may arise, but it is not that the species are new. If there is a great flood and all the men on earth are drowned, the human species is not extinct. Man may or may not survive certain catastrophes. This does not affect the species. We cannot say that the human species is extinct, but that under these circumstances man has survived or not survived. Whatever the case, human beings are existing somewhere else. This is amazing statements by Prabhupada.
Sentence there about there may be an evolution from simpler forms to more complex, but it is not that the species will. So what does that evolution from simpler forms to more complex? So is it more like the soul moving from simpler forms?
Yeah. based on the desire and the karma. Yes. He's going to explain that more thoroughly by giving an example of apartments. So, whatever the case, human beings are existing somewhere else. Devotee. When the Padma Purana says that there are 400,000 species of human life, what does it mean? Prabhupada, there are differences in culture and in body types. Scientists will say that human beings are all of one species, but when they speak of species, they mean something. But when they speak of species, they mean something different. The Vedas, for instance, would consider the Negroes and Aryans to belong to different species. As far as Krishna consciousness is concerned, bodies may differ, it doesn't matter. Our classification is on the basis of the soul. The soul is equal despite different types of bodies. The soul is one and does not change. And then he quotes Vidya Vinaya Sampani. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater or outcast. Bhagavad Gita 5:18. Now, this is very profound. Like I explained this yesterday, I'm going to explain it again. The Bhagavatam, Darwin and his so-called evolutionists, they identify species by body, right? Body types. So they would say, no, they don't know, not body types, by form. So if somebody has one head, two arms, two legs, a nose, two eyes, like that, that's a human being. That's one species. But then how does the Bhagavatam end up with 400,000 human species? Right? Because they don't calculate on the body characteristics so much. They discriminate on the basis of body types and culture. So, therefore, they would say that the Negroes and the Aryans are two different species. That's how they get 400,000, right? Now, Prabhupada now puts a third point. He said, but from the Vaishnava point of view, the body type does not really matter. Because anyone, any human being, can be trained or can change their culture from low class to high class culture and become a devotee. Right? So he says, the Vedas, for instance, would consider the Negroes and Aryans to belong to different species. As far as Krishna consciousness is concerned, bodies may differ. It doesn't matter. Our classification is on the basis of the soul. The soul is equal to... Okay, I made a mistake. It's not on culture. It's on the basis of the soul. The soul is... our classification is on the basis of the soul. The soul is equal despite different types of bodies. The soul is one and does not change. So this is the major difference between Vaishnavism and the Vedas. Now, why does Prabhupada point this out? Well, we can go a little further and see in the second chapter. It says, Trigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistrigunya Bhavarjana, Nirdvandva Sattva, Nirdvandva Nitya Sattvasto, Nir Yoga Shema Atmavan. Second chapter, 45th verse. The Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature, O Arjuna. Become transcendental to these three modes, be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. So the Vedic point of view is not necessarily the Vaishnava point of view. Why? because the Vedic point of view is dealing with the three modes of material nature. The Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature. O Arjuna, be transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. So therefore, the Vaishnava point of view can differ from the Vedic point of view. Why? Because the Vaishnava point of view is not based on the three modes of material nature. It's based on the soul. So therefore, the soul in the body of a Negro or the soul in the body of an animal, the soul in the body of the Negro does not eliminate, or the soul in the body of a woman, or the soul in the body of a Sudra, or the soul in the body of a Vaishya, is equal to the soul in the body of the Brahmana, and even in the souls of the animals. But in the human form, the ability to train a person through education differentiates the human being from the animal, right? But any human being, even the worst human being, even the most unintelligent human being, can be trained to become a pure devotee. That is what's being said here. Therefore, because if you look at the soul, now there are other verses in the Bhagavad Gita, like Vidya Vinaya Brahmani Vihastani Sunichaiva Swapakecha Pandita Samadarshina. So that's the 5th chapter, 18th verse. But if we go to the 6th chapter, verse number 9, let's take a look at that. It says, 6th chapter, verse number 9. It says, a person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral, mediators, the envious, friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind. So this is like the sequel, or the next step up from 5:18, right? And then if we go further to 6th chapter, verse 29, let's see what that says. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. So this is the vision of a real devotee. And then the next verse is a famous one, where it says, Yomam pasyati sarvatra, sarvam chamai pasyati, tasyaham na pranasyati, sachame na pranasyami, sachame na pranasyati. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost in me. So this is the vision of a real devotee. And therefore, the devotee does not develop prejudices, because he sees that every living entity has Krishna in its heart, and therefore is a walking temple of the Lord. So then it says, on the material platform, one material form may be superior to another, just as one apartment may be better than another. But these are material considerations. Now, according to our position, I'm talking about Vaishnava position, we may evolve from lower apartments to higher. But it can also work the other way round. You can go lower. If we are not able to pay the rent or price for a higher apartment, we have to enter a lower one. It is not that the soul is necessarily progressing from lower to higher forms. Devotee, Darwin would claim that all living things on earth are evolving from lower to higher. Prabhupada, generally generally that may be accepted because at certain periods people may be constructing certain types of apartments. But the apartments themselves are not evolving. Evolution takes place within the apartment according to the desire of the jiva. So the evolution is taking place but in the jiva, is not in the body. And it's an evolution of consciousness. It's not an evolution of bodies. So, Darwin has got that wrong also. Darwin thinks that it is the apartment that is changing, but actually it is the desire of the jiva. According to our mentality at the time of death, we get a certain type of apartment or body. In any case, the apartment is already there. It is not that I have to create it. The types of apartments are fixed at 8,400,000. And we can enter into any of them. You cannot conceive of a type of apartment beyond this number. A hotel keeper knows that different customers want different types of facilities. Therefore, he makes arrangements to receive all kinds of customers. Yeah. When we go to Salt Lake, we were going to this one hotel, and he had apartments that were $60 a night. He had other apartments that were $90 a night. He had another apartment that was $120 a night. He had one that was $300 a night. So he had something for everybody, right? And that's what Prabhupada is saying here. You cannot conceive of a type of apartment beyond this number. A hotel keeper knows that different customers want different types of facilities. Therefore, he makes arrangements to receive all kinds of customers. Similarly, this is God's creation, and God knows how many different ways a living entity can think and desire. Therefore, God has created all these species. If the living entity thinks in a certain way, God says, come on, here is the body that you want. Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarva sahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself to be the doer of activities which are in actuality carried out by nature. Bhagavad Gita 3.27. Nature is giving us all facilities. God, as the Paramatma within the heart of everyone, knows what the living entity wants and orders nature to give it to him. This is a law of nature. But presently we see that on this planet there are no longer any dinosaurs. That's the devotee. Prabhupada. As I said before, you may or may not have seen dinosaurs. In any case, you have certainly not seen all the 8,400,000 species of life. This does not mean that these species are no longer existing. They may be existing on some other planet. You have no information of this. Scientists are experimenting with their imperfect senses, but we are receiving knowledge from a different source. Regardless of the amount of scientific research, the conclusions will always be imperfect because the senses are imperfect. This is amazing. See, Prabhupada is making very clear what our basic pramanas are, or how we determine if something is true or false. We don't depend on the research of scientists. We depend on Shastra and the statements of our acharyas. So if you want to know what Krishna consciousness is, you read this book. He's coming up with all these amazing realizations and statements here. And it's a long book. It's how many pages are there? There's like there's 500 pages. And you have to read every one of them because there's something new on every page.
So the other book, Beyond Illusion and Doubt, is a smaller version of
Yes. There's two or three books that are smaller version of this. Yeah.
How to get this book?
Well, you can get it in the smaller versions. They're here right now. Yeah. Okay. So I think we'll stop there. Are there any questions?
Vedas don't recognize soul,
No, Vedas recognize the soul. course they do. But this is specifically about how the Vedas recognize different types of human beings. The Vedas recognize different types of human beings based on culture and body type. So they see 400,000. But the Vaishnavas, they see on the basis of the soul and consciousness.
Even though Vedas recognize, they don't classify the humans on that scale.
No, look, the Vedas are mainly concerned with the three modes of material nature. Vaishnavas are mainly concerned with the soul and its relationship to Krishna. Now, there's knowledge of the soul in the Vedas, of course, but when you come to calculating the different species, there is a difference between the way the Vaishnavas see it and the Vedas see it. That's why, look, I read the verse, the second chapter, 45th verse, where Krishna says to Arjuna, rise above the Vedas. Okay?
So, in one way, the essence of Vedas is what Lord Krishna is declaring.
What?
The essence of actually purpose of Vedas is actually what Lord Krishna is describing. But most of the society follows the karma kanda. But the essence of Vedas is what Lord Krishna is, or the Krishna consciousness is the essence of Vedas, isn't it?
Well, there are two things in the Vedas. There's Shreyas and Preyas. So there's immediate sense gratification and long-term good. So you see those two currents in the Vedas. So most people go to the immediate thing, but the Vaishnavas are concerned with the long-term good, which is go back to Godhead. So the Vedas are a big tent, and everyone can fit into it, you know. That's why Narada Muni told Vyasadeva, look, you made a mistake. You put too much information about Varnashram. You didn't put direct information about Krishna. Now write the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay? So Srimad Bhagavatam is only about Krishna. Vedas, there's a huge amount of information about the Varnashram system. Right? But that's dealing with the three modes of material nature. It's not absolutely transcendental. Of course, therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam is completely transcendental. Okay. Have you ever read the Vedas? No, it's very boring. You get tired. You get bored reading it. It's so many details about this puja, that puja, this demigod, that demigod. You're not sure whose God is, you know, except when you get to the one chapter of the Mahabharata where there's Bhagavad Gita. That makes sense. But you have to. There are 120,000 verses in the Mahabharata. So in Bhagavad Gita is only like 700 verses. So you see, there's so much information. It's information overload, and you get confused, and you don't really understand who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead by reading all the Vedas. But if you just stick to Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, there's no doubt. Okay, we'll stop there. Hare Krishna, glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is online question.
Yes.
What is the difference between Shretagnya and soul? Is former coming later?
Difference between what?
And
Kshetragya? Okay,
soul.
so that's the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Let's take a look. So in 13th chapter it says, Chitragyam. Is it Chitragyam?
I think it says
Chitragyam chapimam vidi sarvachitra subharata. Chitragayor jnanam yadstat jnanam matam mama. So it says, O Skayana Bharata, O Arjuna, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. So Chitragyam means the knower of the field or the body. Okay? So so the question is, the difference between?
Shretagnya and soul.
Okay. So this verse says there are two souls in the body. There's Paramatma and Jivatma. So it refers to both, because both are knowers of the body. Chetra means the body, and Gyan means knowledge of who is the knower of the body. So there are two knowers. There's this Paramatma and the Jivatma. It's not just one. Okay? So there are two souls. There's Paramatma and there's Jivatma. And they both are knowers. But the difference is that Paramatma knows all bodies, and Jivatma only knows its own body. That's a major difference. Okay? Haribol. So, okay, you want to chant? Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Mandamoi Savadana Made
Mandomui Savadana Mate
Jahara Prasade Bhai E Bhava Doriya Jai
Janara Prasade Bhai He Bhavatoriya Jai
Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te
Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chiddete Koriya Kya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chittete Koriya
Arna Kori Ho Mane Asha
Arana Koriya Mane Asa
Sri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uddhamagati
Jai Prasade Pure Sarvasa
Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Asa
चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते वेद गाय जहाँ राचरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनर बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनर बंधु लोकना लोके राजीवाना प्रभु को रोदोया देहो मोरे पाद छाया
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 ये बेजास गुसुक त्रिभुवाना प्रभुपाद पतिता पावना जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा
जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा
नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशधारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशधारिणे
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरा भक्त वृंद Jayo Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Hare Ramo 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Nitya Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitya Gaura Haribo.
Jayam Vishnupad, Paramahansa Pararajakatas, Tatara Satarashishi, Samadas Divine A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai, Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kundarat Kunda Giri Govardhana ki jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Mahapura Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Tulasi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Ganga Maya ki jai, Jamuna Maya ki jai, Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled celebrities, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Sumati Bhakti Swami. The lotus feet of our spiritual master, the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus
attachment to this lotus feet of the perfection and the fulfillment of all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental love. He is my Lord, birth of the Lord. From him excites and emanates by him ignorance and destroys the scriptures in the name of Jesus. Our spirit is masterpiece, ocean of mercy, friend of the poor and the Lord, master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful and